For the last 20 years, one of Australia's best known and loved wedding dress designers and photographers, Rhonda Hemmingway, has kept a secret diary. Now, we've all heard of the Nanny Diaries and Kitchen Confidential, and Secrets of a Wedding Dress Designer is one of those books. So Rhonda, tell us, what was the inspiration behind the book?
The book ideas came to me at least 10 years ago, where I used to chat with my brides while I was making their dresses, and I would tell them funny stories about other brides. And every single bride would say to me, "You've got to write a book, you've got to put it down."
So from what I've read, there are stories of romance and then there's stories of bridezillas. I'm intrigued to know, what is your worst experience that you've had?
There was one that I will never forget. That was the saddest wedding I've ever done, of a girl in a wheelchair who had a car accident when her fiancé was overseas, and she basically just, you know, cut him out of her life. She didn't want to ruin his life, and got on with hers. And she went to university. She did lots of degrees. She became a counsellor, and purely by, you know, amazement and luck, he was a sports teacher, and one of his students had become a quadriplegic, and he went to visit him in the rehabilitation centre, and there she was counselling him. So they re-met, and, you know, and they fell in love. He always loved her, and she fell in love with him again, but didn't want to bring his life down. And he didn't. He wouldn't give up. So they didn't get married. I hope I haven't given away too much of that lovely story.
Now, a wedding is an all-encompassing emotional experience that really does bring out the best and worst in people that we've all seen at times. Can you tell me, does the book reflect the stresses that are put on people when they are planning their wedding?
Yes, definitely do. I think the wedding itself on the wedding day is like the icing on the cake. The wedding is about everything that leads up to it, the good and the bad. It does bring out a lot of emotions that people don't even know are there. It does bring out the worst in people, definitely.
Now, what advice can you give girls who are planning their weddings, so to try and avoid them going down this path, the bridezilla path?
I think the best advice I can give about having a stress-free wedding is, at the beginning, you organise everybody that you really trust to know that they'll do a good job for you. Like the florist, you know she'll do beautiful flowers and deliver. The dressmaker will make you a beautiful dress and deliver on time without stress, and it'll fit you beautifully and you'll love it. You've chosen the right reception place, that you know that they'll do everything for you, you know the meal will be fine. You've got to put your trust in people who do one thing each and know that they're going to do the job, and not worry that they're not going to do their job, because they always do.
Now, not all the stories are about bridezillas. There are some really beautiful romantic stories that really remind us about why we're getting married in the first place.
Yes, there are some really romantic, lovely stories in there. No, there's only a couple of really terrible stories, stories you just won't believe people could put you through. But most of the stories are, they're different, and there are lots of little romantic ones. There's one, for example, that I particularly love, about a bride who met her to-be husband just before a nightclub was closing, like at the end of the night, and they exchanged numbers because they just felt there was something there. He drove home in a taxi and realised that he'd lost her phone number, and he was desperate, so he drove back, and they went around the block in a taxi for like an hour, and he was just about to give up, and he saw her in the city and jumped out of the taxi, and you know, that was it. They got married and the taxi driver went to the wedding. What
would you like readers to take away from this book?
I'd like them to not be able to put it down, want to read the next story before they can go and have dinner, for example. I want them to want to read it again, and to pass on the stories to their friends at work, you know, talk about the stories, because I think a lot of them are really worth talking about. In fact, I hope most of them are worth talking about.
Thanks, Rhonda. Now, this book is full of romance, interfering friends and bridezillas, those brides we love to hate. So Rhonda's book is available online at I Do.